now available in paperback and ebook. The Man Who Rules the World. John Haynes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere. A self-described men's rights activist was found dead in the Catskills in New York. And this self-described anti-feminist and men's rights activist, lawyer Roy Den Hollander, is alleged to be the prime suspect in an alleged attack on U.S. District Judge Esther Salas, where her husband was shot and wounded, and her son, Daniel Anduril, was murdered. Now, many in the manosphere are stating that this incident where U.S. District Judge Esther Salas was targeted for this attack was related to her being assigned a case of Jeffrey Epstein. But when I take a critical examination of the alleged actions of the late Roy Den Hollander, I see yet another incident that fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that your Roy Den Hollander had been a ticking time bomb for many years, and eventually all of his feelings of misogyny wound up leading to him exploding in a rage where he participated in this horrific act of violence. Now, your Roy Den Hollander it looks like to me, from what I am reading, is a textbook beta male, and he's a textbook beta male with numerous issues with women. Now, his issues with women have to do with what he believes is women getting an unfair advantage, and this was his motivation for becoming a men's rights activist. And him, in his quest to become this men's rights activist, wanted to file lawsuits in order to challenge the constitutionality of Ladies' Night, which is completely illogical because Ladies' Night is something done by private businesses and has no real bearing on federal policy. And he also, we're talking about nightclubs violating the human rights of men by charging money for bottle services and other issues, and he tried to sue Columbia University for providing women's studies classes, and I believe it is all of these lawsuits that led to him becoming this beta male, simmering and boiling in rage, because as he continued to file these lawsuits and continued to remain unsuccessful, what happened was he was becoming more and more angry, more and more frustrated, and the key to his frustration, which he did not connect with, was that men's rights activism just doesn't work, because when a man tries to fight for so-called men's rights in the American legal system, which is gynocentric, he is destined to lose, and he didn't understand this. And I believe this is the thing that led to him practically having numerous issues that went in his mind. And as those issues continued to go on, his mental state started to deteriorate. And this is what led to him winding up in a situation where in 2011, he had declared bankruptcy and then was winding up living on supplemental security income and whatever $300 a month he made from his work. So his whole life situation had been deteriorating due to him trying to reconcile this faulty logic he had regarding women. And over time, that faulty logic led to him continuing to escalate his behavior to the point where in 2015, he had filed a lawsuit where he was trying to deal with involving a woman in the men-only military draft, and this whole case, which wound up falling apart in front of him, I believe was the thing that was the straw that broke his camel's back, because Judge Salas was the one who was hearing this case, and I believe she practically wound up going and I believe either dismissing this case or doing something with this case. And I believe this was the thing that set your Den Hollander off, if this pattern is clear to me. And I believe this man, after finding out that your Judge Salas was Hispanic, this is the other thing that triggered him and led to him further simmering and boiling in rage, and then escalating his behavior to fixating on your Judge Salas, because he believed that this Hispanic judge had denied him in this latest case that he had. And this fits right in the pattern and profile for beta males, because beta males live in a rose-colored picture of reality, and whenever their picture of reality is challenged, what these men do is they wind up trying to project their failures onto one individual, and that one individual he wanted to project his anger on was Judge Salas. And as he projected that anger onto her about his numerous failures and frustrations, what he wanted to do was make a plan to get revenge on Judge Salas. Because when it comes down to these beta males, whenever they see an individual who they believe has done them harm, they want to go out here and get that revenge. And this is probably what this man planned to do when he went out here and heard about Judge Salas. He was probably looking for her address, looking for her phone number, and was looking to, I see it, probably stalked her for some good time as he planned this whole revenge scenario. And then after he planned this revenge scenario, he then probably woke up and saw reality for a moment, and that's when he decided to go out here and take his own life. Because I believe, like most beta males, this guy wanted to go out here, and he had planned this elaborate revenge scheme where he would disguise himself as a FedEx worker, and he came to the house with the package addressed to her, and then shot the husband, murdered the son. And when he saw that he couldn't find the judge to get his revenge, that's when he decided to take off. And as he decided to take off, and probably heard news stories about the case, this is where reality started to set in, because like with most beta males, the rose-colored fantasy of revenge they have, once they have participated in their rose-colored fantasy, reality starts to set in. And because these men do not want to face justice, what happens is these men wind up taking their own lives because they don't want to be held accountable for their actions, and they don't want to be punished by the United States criminal justice system. But when I look at this whole incident, it's a very troubling one, because one, it's an incident that shows me that the man crisis here in America is getting worse, and two, it shows me how dangerous your so-called men's rights activists are as related to the man crisis. Because your men's rights activists, these guys, what makes them ticking time bombs is the fact that they want to try to fight for men's issues in the American legal system. But the way they want to fight in the American legal system is what makes them dangerous. These men believe that they can go out here and just file lawsuits and go out here and file protests, not understanding that in a gynocentric system, your attempts to go through those channels are just going to fail, and you're just going to keep hitting your head against the wall time after time. And what I see from this whole incident is it's going to do damage to men on social media, especially men in places like the manosphere and places like men going their own way, and platforms for men going their own way, because many people are going to connect these groups with this guy, not understanding that men going their own way is completely different, because men going their own way they are pacifistic, they are nonviolent, and they do not advocate for any sort of violence whatsoever. Most of the men who want to go their own way, they just want to be left alone. Unfortunately, due to this men's rights activist, they're going to be sadly targeted because of this men's rights activist actions, and other men in the manosphere are going to be targeted as well. Because what this man's hateful actions will do is trigger most of the people in the mainstream media to state that men's groups are hate groups, but men's groups had absolutely nothing, and men's forums had absolutely nothing to do with this man. This was a men's rights activist, and a men's rights activist is completely different than a man going his own way, or males who participate in male forums like the manosphere in many cases. Your men's rights activist is an individual who really has not taken a red pill, is not completely clued on anything, and is so caught up in their emotions that they're not thinking critically when they go out here and act. Because this man spent years trying to fight against a criminal justice system and a justice system looking to make it equal, but the whole thing was he didn't understand that his cases were falling apart because many of his arguments were fundamentally flawed, and he kept trying to make these arguments make sense, but the more he tried to make them make sense, the more insane he was becoming. And what's really troubling, again, is he, in his actions as a men's rights activist, made it just that much harder for every other man out here who is focused on men's issues and focused on working towards developing constructive solutions to help other men. This beta male, in his emotional reaction to losing a case against a judge, he has made life just that much harder for every other man out here who wants to discuss men's issues, because it may be a possibility that platforms like your YouTube, your Facebook, and many others where men congregate and talk about men's issues we might wind up losing those forums due to the actions of this men's rights activist and his emotional reaction to the failures he had in life. Because this guy screwed up, it's going to make it just that much harder for men out there to discuss men's issues or to deal with issues as related to the man crisis we're having here in America. And this man clearly was a man in crisis. He was a ticking time bomb, and he was a ticking time bomb because he just didn't understand that the approaches he was using to fight for other men by trying to attack women just weren't going to work. And he kept trying to use these approaches, not understanding the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And he has made life that much harder for everybody else who wants to talk about men's issues, because by his misogynistic and his misogynistic violence, he has made life that much harder, because they're going to take this guy and make him the poster child for not only your men's rights activism, but they're going to use him as a poster child for other groups that had nothing to do with him, like men going their own way or the manosphere. They're going to take this guy's violence and use it as the reason for taking down forums and silencing men, not understanding that many of these platforms were designed to help men. Many of these platforms have transformed men's lives, and these platforms should not be removed, all because one so-called men's rights activist got so caught up in his emotions that he could not think critically.
No, we really need to look at this man crisis and the roots of this man crisis, because this man, the reason why he was so violent, because he was a man in crisis. He was a ticking time bomb, and he didn't understand that the approaches he was using to try to get change were destined to fail. And because he used the wrong approaches, it's going to make it again that much harder for every other man out here who is working towards stopping the man crisis in this country and helping other men move their lives forward. I'm hoping that this incident doesn't set other men's groups and other men's YouTube channels back, because this incident, it really shows you, again, the dangers that one ignorant beta male can do to other men in the community. Because when you have one ignorant beta male out here and they say they're representing men's issues, they can do just as much devastating damage as what Sergeant Waters said one ignorant, I'm not going to say it, did in the movie A Soldier Story. Now, if you want to learn more about these extremely troubled and dysfunctional beta males and the spectrum of violent behaviors and what motivates that spectrum of violent behaviors they participate in, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. You can also find it on Smashwords, Google Play, and the iBookstore. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere.